Hey guys, Marty here. Today I got a video for you on my Ele Hit character that I've just started. It's not my original build, it's actually one that I'm pretty much exactly copying from a popular hardcore player named Dan, or PoE Dan79. So he's got this character in pretty optimized gear, but I'm just giving it a try because a lot of viewers in my stream wanted me to try Ele Hit, and I just ripped on my tier 16 tornado shot bow MFer to me just being absolutely stupid. Um, but I got a couple clips here, and I've sort of done it in a different way. You guys were requesting that I turn off my chroma key for the video, so that's what I've done to hide my camera, so it's a little bit less distracting for you guys. But so far with Ele Hit, I've been loving it. I mean, the character, it's not like exactly cheap so far. I've put about 20 Exalted Orbs into it in hardcore, so that's maybe like 10 softcore Exalteds. I don't know the prices on softcore, obviously. But that's also including some like luxury items that you don't really need. Like, the bare bones I could have got this together for was maybe like 4 Exalteds at most, or something like that. It's insane. I mean, I'm using like a Combs Heart. You know, that was a big part of it, and Tomb Fist. I'll show you guys the gear in a little bit, but yeah, basically, pretty cheap character, and like the amount of damage I'm getting for such a small investment is absolutely insane. Um, I'm gonna be doing tier 16s on this character, and if things go well, I might try and do some Shapers and maybe Elders once I get it scaled up. Right now, my gems aren't even leveled. Like, I don't have 20 gems, don't have quality on my gems. The only thing I've got is a 20 Ele Hit that I like lucked out. I hit my first ball with +1, but I'm even using like a 5 link and just absolutely demolishing all the bosses I've done so far, even up to like T12s I think is the highest I've done on it so far. Currently like level 88, and yeah, you can see here just absolutely crushing bosses. But so that's what I've got right now, but here's the character. I decided, you know, this is something Dan's done, which I think looks really cool. So it's actually blood magic. I'm not using any auras. I'm just using um, as much life as I can get throughout the tree. I'm not even using a Zoph's Heart, just using Avatar of Fire with Yoke of Suffering. This amulet's actually really crazy. A lot of people were asking me in my stream why I'm using Yoke of Suffering. Well, basically, if you look at this amulet, it gives you a chance to shock with elemental damage. That may not seem like a lot, but this build hits ridiculously hard. On my single target setup, which is currently a 5 link, my damage range is 17,000 to 54,000. That's before buffs like frenzy charges. So this thing is absolutely crazy, the amount of like a flat hit that you're gonna do. And it's gonna get higher and higher as I get gem quality, as I get better up gear, things like that. So, you know, the damage flat that you're doing is insane, which means you're going to put a really large shock on the target. And in putting a really large shock, that means that, you know, that's a more multiplier. Also, it says enemies take 5% increased damage for each type of ailment you have inflicted on them. This is actually not an increased multiplier, it's enemies take increase. So it actually functions as a more multiplier. And because you apply Ignite, and this makes you apply Shock, it makes it a 10% more multiplier, which then gets further compounded. Ele Hit does, at the bottom you can see 10% more damage per elemental ailment on the enemy. So it's adding another 10% more multiplier right here on every hit past your first one. So altogether it's just absolutely crazy amount of damage out of that amulet. And it gives really good resistances. Well, not really good, but it gives okay resistances, gives some stats, so it's kind of handy in that regard. Quiver-wise, just ridiculously cheap stuff here. I've got a point-blank drill neck and or just a regular corrupted drill neck. This thing cost me 2 chaos. The point blank drill neck cost me 1 exalted orb. 5 link chinsaw I linked it myself, but you can probably get one for like 30 chaos or 50 chaos maybe. I don't know what the ranges are on softcore, but in hardcore they're ridiculously cheap right now. I socketed it myself to get the 4 off colors. You could use chromes. I don't know what the best way to do that is. I did with jewelers, which was probably a waste, but I just wanted to make sure I got it. So yeah, that's you know, pretty cheap, and like I said, it's just on a 5 link. I will be getting it to a 6 link eventually, and when I get that, I'll be getting Mirage Archer, which is another pretty big more multiplier because the Mirage Archer attacks in tandem with you. And you know, when you're kiting or when you're repositioning, the Mirage Archer is still doing damage. But as for my main weapon, I'm just using currently a +2 fire gems short bow, and the way you make one of these really easily is Essences of Rage. The tier above Screaming, so Shrieking, gives you +1 to fire gems. You can also get that out of Essence of Sorrow, so if I put these up here, it gives +2 to cold gems, and Essences of Spite give +1 to lightning gems, so again, you upgrade these, you got a +2 to lightning gems. And all of these work for Ele Hit because it counts as fire, cold, and lightning, so that's really cool. You have tons of options here. No, not that. Okay, yeah, so you got 3 options at least, and Sorrows are usually really cheap. Rages can be a little bit on the pricey side, but you only need 1 of these, and if you're going for a +3 bow, you might need a couple. But it's not too hard. I will be going for a +3 bow probably tomorrow at some point, maybe tonight before I go to sleep. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, so since you can use Essences of Sorrow and Spite and Rage, it's really easy to get a +2 bow. The 6-link short bow just comes from the Porcupine Prophecy, or sorry, Divination cards. They cost me about 9 chaos each on hardcore, but I already had 4. When I looked, there were 50 for sale, and it's a 6-card set, 9 chaos a pop. Top end was like 13 or 14 chaos a pop. They're super cheap, and all you really need is attack speed and fire gems, or +2 to any kind of elemental gems on it. So super easy to get. If you do get the right mods, you can get a +3, which is obviously insane. The amount of damage you gain from a +2 and a +3 is really high. And a lot of people are going for Frostferno. I haven't personally done the math on whether Frostferno or the +2 bow or whatever is better. I'm not really too interested in figuring that stuff out. I'm totally satisfied with where my damage is right now. And I trust Dan's judgment. He was doing this setup and it looked really cool, and so far it's been functioning great. So we'll see how it goes as we go forward. Obviously I'm using a Combs Heart right now. You don't need that. You could sub it out for literally any chest you want to do. You could even put a 6-link Ele Hit setup in your chest if you don't want to have to weapon swap. But the Chinsaw damage is pretty crazy. 100% more damage against at close range, so it's literally 100% more multiplier. I don't know, this bow's insane. But yeah, so you probably want to do the Chinsaw weapon swap. Ring, Call of the Brotherhood, kind of self-explanatory, but for anyone who's not aware, you want to have the conversion. It's not necessary. I was told that it's about equivalent to a 120 LE damage ring, so that's really high. You can see if I take my Call of the Brotherhood off, this is without buffs or anything, but 89,000 DPS goes down to 74,000 DPS. So right there is about a 15% damage loss. With buffs, when I looked at it, it was about a 20% damage loss or something like that. My math's probably really far off, I apologize, but it's a lot of damage. Pyre, it's serving a couple purposes here. For one thing, it's converting our cold into fire, but on top of that, ignited enemies you hit are destroyed on kill. So what this means is when you're killing porcupines or when you're fighting against detonate dead mobs, as long as you ignite the mob, it'll explode. You see that a little bit in the clips that I showed earlier. Just mobs exploding because of the pyre, so it's really handy for that. Tomb Fists, I think, are a pretty big deal. My corruption was terrible. I did this today. It's so close to being god tier. Like if it had been attacks have plus crit chance and attack speed, it would be super good. But for anyone who's not aware, Intimidate no longer works for spells. They nerfed that a couple of weeks ago. So this corruption is not exactly ideal. But it's whatever. I just wanted to corrupt them for some fun. Mostly we're using this for Intimidate. The maim is pretty cool. It's obviously really handy, and then you get a bit of life and attack speed and some sockets out of that. So I'm probably going to replace these Tomb Fists eventually, but they do it for now. Belt, mostly what you're looking for is high life, elemental damage with attacks, and reduced flash duration, or reduced flash charges, according to Dan. I couldn't find a belt like that, so I just went with one with high res and a little flask mod to help juice up my flask a bit more against bosses. When you're mapping, you pretty much have 100% flask uptime. There weren't too many crazy belts. You don't need an Abyss belt. You could also go for Elder belt with life recovery rate if you can get a crazy craft on it. Who knows, maybe you get lucky or you have one sitting around. That's insane, that'd be awesome. But yeah, mainly you're just looking for Wed and life and something with flasks, I guess. Boots wise, you don't need Bubonic Trails. It's really easy to res cap if you don't use Bubonic Trails, but I already had these sitting in my stash then from when I swapped them out on my bow character. I was using Goldworms when I died on that character, so I just had these sitting around, figured I'd use them. you put 2 big life jewels in here, and it's basically 96 life boots with 30 resistance or 30 movement speed, 6% life, and 40% damage because I'm using one of each type of abyss jewel. I've got a Searching Eye, a Ghastly Eye, a Hypnotic Eye, and a Murderous Eye. So that's 40% increased damage on the boots. They're absolutely insane, but again, not necessary. I'm just using some jewels with phasing and life and attack speed where I can get it. The lightning damage to bows, obviously, it does get converted to fire, so it's pretty nice. So is like, you know, I've got lightning damage to attacks here. We got some fire damage here, but mainly this jewel is just for onslaught, because you do want one onslaught jewel. It's really handy to have. But yeah, that's the majority of the gear. Flask-wise, I got a warding and adrenaline and a heat flask, a staunching flask on my life flask, and I'm using Wise Oak. And I was actually able to get my character completely, perfectly Wise Oak balanced. So for anyone who's unfamiliar with how that works, the Wise Oak flask gives you reduced damage taken from your lowest uncapped resistance. What uncapped means is this 76 doesn't affect it. It goes by the number in the brackets. So if I had 156 fire res, then fire res would be my highest uncapped resistance, if that makes sense. So your lowest one you get reduced damage taken, and your highest one you get penetration. But what's cool about this flask is if you have perfect balance like this, 88, 88, 88, then you get reduced damage taken from all 3 elements. So it's super valuable flask. And then I also would get penetration with all 3 elements, but I only do fire damage. So, you know, that's not too significant. That's the majority of the gear. This is the tree. Something that you absolutely need for this build is 2 combat focuses. You need the Viridian Jewel one, and you need the Crimson Jewel one. The reason you do this is so you force it to always choose fire. If you don't do this, then half the time, or 2/3 of the time, you're not going to choose fire, and you're going to do 0 damage, because we're taking Avatar of Fire and doing all these modes to convert our damage over to fire, so that we can, you know, get this juicy flat damage on the Ele Hit gem. So for anyone who's unaware, the way this gem functions with conversion, there's been a lot of videos, this is not a new tactic or anything, but the way this gem works is it picks one of the 3 damages. You can't deal any damage of the one that it doesn't pick, but if you convert all of the damage to another type, for example, if we convert all the cold into lightning, just as an example, and it picks lightning, then it will do the base damage of the cold and the base damage of the lightning. Now, the way we've got it set up, we've converted everything over to fire. So we're doing the base damage, well, 90% of the base damage of the cold, 90% of the base damage of the lightning, and 100% of the base damage of the fire on every single attack. That's a big part of why this skill is so crazy. And then it's also got the more multiplier and, you know, a crazy amount of chance to shock and freeze and ignite. Really cool. Gem link wise, combustion, this is really important. You want to get 100% chance to ignite if you can, because it gives you a more multiplier and it lets you pop mobs with Pyre Ring. We got Ele damage with attacks, damage on full life, greater multiple projectiles, Mirage Archer, and then of course Ele Hit. On the single target setup, we've got damage on full life, fire penetration, combustion, elemental damage with attacks, and Ele Hit. Sixth link will be a Mirage Archer when I end up linking this Chinsol, or I might buy another one to link. We'll see how that goes. Also, another thing to note about the Chinsol that's cool, because we've got Avatar of Fire, we're also converting some of this physical damage into the fire damage, which isn't too significant, but it's a bit more base damage. It's pretty nice. That, you know, it adds up. Same with on the Drill Neck. But the main roles here you're looking at are the attack speed and the increased damage with hits against targets that they pierce. That's a big chunk of damage there, and you get some life. So it's, you know, a really nice quiver, really cheap to get corruptions on. You know, great all around. Otherwise, we got Blink Arrow faster attacks, we got Blood Rage and Decoy Totem in the boots, but you can put this stuff anywhere. I'm using a Portal Gem in my helmet with my cast when damage taken, Immortal Call, increased duration. Dan was actually using, what's it called, Cold Snap here, but I wanted the Portal Gem because I hate having to portal out a map from my inventory, so I might swap this out later, but that's the current setup. Jewel-wise, I'm just picking up some resistances, life, and attack speed. You know, damage if you can get it, but I wanted to get jewels that would get my reses exactly to even for the Wise Oak, because I've very rarely done characters that do that, and it's pretty fun to do it. But, you know, you don't need exactly these items. Could use rare boots, could use one socket Tomb Fists, or you could even use rare gloves, but I recommend Tomb Fists because they're so cheap for one socket. Call of the Brotherhood's pretty cheap, Pyre's ridiculously cheap, Yoke, you could probably replace it with another amulet, but I would recommend running either a yoke or maybe a Zoph's Blood, but I haven't really looked into the numbers on Zoph's Blood yet. I let, the theory crafters do that kind of stuff, and I just like to play the game. But yeah, bow's super cheap, quiver's super cheap, all around super cheap character that's super effective. I'm really looking forward to pushing it to higher levels and maybe doing some bossing on it, and obviously scaling my damage up once I can get quality on all these gems. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me bring up my bow rip for you guys. I should have grabbed this before the video, but I forgot. I had, was busy getting that footage done. But yeah, let me show you guys my tornado shot rip. I'll show you guys what happened. Don't want the music in there or we can get in trouble on YouTube. Alright, so this is what happened. So I just went back to town to loot. I was doing tier 16 underground seas. Here, let me move my cam out of the way. Actually, I guess I can, there we go. So I'm doing tier 16 underground seas. You can see here if we pause, it's minus max and it's turbo. I knew it was minus max, didn't realize it was turbo. But because I had just gone back to town to loot, I have no headhunter buffs. And right here I'm like, wait, is that Tiz Tiash? But then I realized it's a Baxith. I ran into it thinking that it was a Tiz Tiash, the fire beyond mob. And then I realized right here that I'm going into a dead end. And I was like, fuck, I need to get headhunter buffs to just kill this thing off real quick. So not realizing that it was turbo, I go back into it to blink over this way. Look at its life. I could have just killed it if I was paying attention. You can see it's pretty low. If I had been paying attention, I could have just finished it off. Oh wait, could I have? Yeah, it's like ridiculously low HP, right? Oh no, maybe it's full HP, but I could have just kited it. I could have run this down this way and then looped back around, or I could have gone up here and then kited back after the flame blasts were out of the way. But I just made a big mistake. I wasn't in a great mood. I was just kind of streaming for the sake of it, to not make you guys have a content drought or not, just ditch you guys. But I was doing hard content in the game, and I fucked up. I didn't press my dying sun. I tried to blink, not realizing it was turbo. Tons of mistakes on my part. Totally my fault. I'm not too upset about the death. Mostly I'm upset that I lost my currency. The character had maybe 300 exalts worth of stuff. So it feels bad to rip it, but it is what it is. I already hit 100 this league, and it gives me an excuse to try out Ele Hit and stuff like this. So I apologize for the length of this video, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I tried to go a little bit more in depth than I normally do on my build videos, or at least than I've done recently. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this build. I would totally recommend trying out Ele Hit. It's been super fun, and thank you guys so much for the support. Sorry for the drought in content. I might make a video on the bow character, the tornado shot one that I was running in T16s, MFing. It was really fun and really successful, and obviously that death was entirely my fault, but really expensive. So if you guys want to see that, let me know. The reason I'm not really too into doing the video on it is because, like I said, it's really expensive gear, and I don't want to really make a guide that's unattainable for 95% of the community probably, because I'm using probably close to 300 Exalted Orbs worth of gear on that character. But if you guys want to see a video on that, let me know. I can get some footage from my stream, show you guys some of the loot in those tier 16s when you're running, full juice with the quant gear and stuff. It's pretty crazy. I was sustaining maps, and I can make a video on how to sustain tier 16s, but some people like Empyrean have already done videos on that. Let me know if you guys would like to see some of that stuff from me, and thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great night.